Before Donald Trump could even step forward and confidently declare a geopolitical victory to millions of Americans watching with anticipation, Iran made a move so unexpected, so calculated, and so psychologically disruptive that it didn't just interrupt the narrative, it completely reshaped the battlefield before the speech even began. Not a missile strike that could be tracked on advanced radar systems, not a military escalation that analysts could break down in real time, not even a warning shot designed to intimidate or provoke, but a single, carefully crafted letter designed to hit the one place no defense system can protect. And that place is not territory, not infrastructure, but perception. Because once perception shifts, reality itself begins to feel different. That letter, despite having no explosive force, may prove more dangerous to Washington's strategic position than any weapon deployed in this conflict. Because modern conflicts are no longer defined only by physical power, they are defined by who controls the narrative before the public even realizes they are being influenced. And the side that controls the narrative first often controls how millions emotionally react before they logically analyze. Iran understood this dynamic deeply and chose to strike not with force, but with timing, precision, and psychological intent. It didn't send this message to military leadership where it could be filtered, analyzed, and contained. It didn't route it through political channels where it could be debated, delayed, or diluted. It went directly to the American public, bypassing power and targeting perception at its most vulnerable point. And when a country under intense pressure chooses to speak directly to the citizens of its opponent instead of its leaders, it signals something far more dangerous than desperation. It signals confidence, belief, and a calculated assumption that its version of the story may resonate more strongly than the official narrative. To understand why this moment matters, you need to step back from the noise of headlines and examine the deeper architecture of this decades-long tension. The United States and Iran have existed in a state that is neither peace nor full war, but a carefully managed hostility filled with hidden pressure points. This includes sanctions that squeeze economies, proxy conflicts that shift influence, nuclear negotiations that redefine risk, and decades of layered mistrust. Most people know the conflict exists, but very few truly understand how it evolved or why it continues. And that gap between reality and understanding is where influence thrives. Iran recognized that gap and moved into it with precision timing. Because uncertainty creates opportunity, and opportunity allows narrative control, and whoever explains the conflict first often shapes how it is remembered. Now here is where things escalate rapidly, because the timing of this letter was not accidental. It was engineered with strategic intent. It was released just before Trump's national address, where he was expected to present recent actions as a clear success. Iran didn't wait for that narrative to settle into public consciousness. It disrupted it before it even began. This is critical because the first version of a story often becomes the dominant one. Iran inserted doubt before certainty could take hold. It replaced clarity with questions and confidence with curiosity. It didn't attack the speech directly, it weakened its foundation in advance, and that is far more powerful than responding afterward. Because once doubt enters early, it spreads faster and lasts longer. And that is where the real psychological shift begins. The letter opened with a question so sharp that it cuts through political noise instantly and forces deeper thinking. Who is this conflict actually for? And whose interests are truly being served behind the scenes? That single question has the power to reshape perception at a massive scale, because it forces people to move beyond emotion and examine interests. Iran framed itself as reacting, not initiating, presenting every action as defensive. Whether accepted or rejected, the framing itself influences how people interpret events. The tone remained calm, structured, and controlled, which increases credibility. And credibility is more persuasive than emotional outrage. It didn't feel chaotic, it felt intentional, and that makes it far more powerful. Then the focus shifted toward American taxpayers, making the message deeply personal and relatable. It targeted everyday people dealing with rising costs, economic pressure, and uncertainty, and it raised a powerful question about whether this conflict truly benefits them, or whether it primarily serves external strategic interests. That question introduces division quickly, because once purpose is questioned, support begins to weaken. And once support weakens, political pressure rises. This was not random communication, it was targeted psychological messaging. It connected directly with existing concerns, and that is what made it effective. Then came the nuclear deal reference, adding historical depth and credibility. The 2015 agreement was presented as a stabilizing framework. Iran reminded the audience it had remained compliant initially, and that the United States withdrew in 2018. The message was simple, yet impactful. We followed the rules, you changed them. That line introduces doubt about responsibility. And once responsibility is questioned, justification weakens. That is where narratives begin to crack. And once cracked, they're difficult to repair. The letter then reached deeper into history, amplifying emotional impact. Referencing past interventions created a long-term perspective. It framed the conflict as a pattern rather than an isolated event. That changes how the present is interpreted, because history adds context, context adds complexity, and complexity weakens simple narratives. Weak narratives lose control. That was the intention. And it worked. Now step back and analyze the strategy at a higher level. Iran is not trying to win a direct military confrontation. Instead, it is targeting political will and public perception. Because wars depend on belief as much as power. If belief weakens, decisions slow down. And when decisions slow, momentum shifts. This is about raising the cost of escalation, not just financially, but psychologically. And psychological cost is harder to counter, because narratives cannot be bombed. The letter spread quickly across platforms and discussions. It reached beyond experts into everyday conversations. That is when influence becomes real. Because public discussion shapes political reality. It didn't create doubt, it amplified it. And amplified doubt spreads rapidly. That is when perception shifts. And once perception shifts, strategy must adapt. That is the real impact, not immediate, but powerful over time. The most important insight is this. This was not desperation. It was calculated confidence, a signal that Iran believes time may be on its side, that internal pressure within the U.S. may increase, that public opinion, economic strain, and global hesitation may reshape decisions. And if that happens, well, the balance shifts completely. Because wars are not only fought on battlefields, they are fought in minds, and that battle has already begun. So what do you think? Will this strategy shift public opinion or be dismissed as propaganda? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Market Mindset for more deep analysis.